There are silences that speak louder than 1,000 words. They are not noisy or pushy, yet they carry a deep weight. A moment of eye contact held for a second too long, a smile with a hint of something hidden, a message that stays in its tone. All these are not accidents. They are signs, small and soft, but signs all the same. Often they mark the start of a new emotional story, one that neither person may have planned on purpose. What happens when a married man begins to look at another woman in a new way? This question is not about gossip. It is not about blame or being upset. It is about emotional awareness, an honest and kind look at the complex human ways we act when something starts to change under the surface of our bonds. Because desire, more often than we admit, does not come from being mean, but from a slow, burning emptiness. It comes not from cruelty, but from needs that are not met and a quiet loneliness. In many cases, the man does not leave his home looking for a new bond. He is not planning to be unfaithful. He may not even be fully aware of what he is looking for. But then it happens, maybe in a break room, a meeting, or a hallway. A simple talk with a coworker feels different. She listens with real interest. She laughs at his jokes. She truly sees him. And in that moment, something that was asleep wakes up. The change from being polite friends to having strong feelings is rarely sudden. It is slow. It moves in like a whisper. A tone becomes warmer. A look becomes more focused. What used to be basic, useful talk gains an emotional feel, more gentle, more personal, and more important. And if you are that woman, the one who sees this change, you may find yourself caught in a confusing mental fog. You might doubt yourself. Am I making this up? Am I seeing something that is not there? Your gut feelings nudge you, sensing something has changed even before you can name it. It is in that moment of doubt that a new story begins. Language acts as the first bridge. One of the first signs of emotional desire is a change in how he talks. His words get softer. There is a long pause when he speaks to you. His voice gets lower and more tender. He pays closer attention and laughs more easily when you are around. Even when he is talking about work, the feeling behind it is different, more close, and more involved. Psychology tells us that when men feel a draw towards someone, especially one they have not told themselves about yet, they begin to change their talk. This is not always something they mean to do. It is emotional. They naturally create what could be called a tiny bubble of special connection. Inside it, the rules of the outside world begin to fade. Inside that space, the two of you share a secret way of talking, one built not on clear words, but on tone, hidden meanings, and energy. Praise is another sign. It starts small. You look good today. You always say smart things. On the outside, these may seem fine, but the way he says them, his eye contact, his smile, and the short pause after, all point to something deeper. These are not just any nice words. They are personal and carefully picked. Often they show not just that he likes you, but that he is picking you out. He is not just being nice. He is noticing you in a way that matters. Carl Jung suggested that all human bonds carry a layer where we put our feelings on others. When a married man begins to want another woman, he may not be seeing her for who she is. Instead, he is putting parts of himself onto her, his needs that are not met, his hidden wishes, and his empty roles. Perhaps he no longer feels good about himself at home. Perhaps his work goes unnoticed in his marriage. And so, without meaning to, he starts seeing you as the mirror of the man he wishes he still was. This is not based on a lie. It is based on what is missing. He is drawn to you not just because of who you are, but because of how he feels when he is with you. He feels seen, liked, and wanted. But what does this mean for you? It means you must move carefully because you are not only getting attention, you are being given a special meaning. You are moving into the role of a mirror, a person to trust, and a safe place to go. Once that role is given, it rarely stays simple for long. Another sign shows up in how often he looks for you. At first it is small. He asks questions he does not need to, finds reasons to text you, or sends you a story or a joke just to keep a link going. Over time, these moments add up and form an emotional habit. This habit is not about plans, it is about staying linked. He begins to need your answers. He checks how fast you text back. He changes how he acts based on your tone. Slowly, your role in his inner life grows, and you may start to find yourself doing the same thing, checking your phone more often, feeling a small rush when you see his name, and being curious about his moods. This is where things become risky, not because of physical acts, but because of emotional blending. As noted in the study of the mind, until you make what is hidden known, it will lead your life, and you will call it fate. If you do not see the thread forming between the two of you, it will start to pick your choices, and you may wake up one day deep in a bond you never meant to make. Even the jokes change. They become more playful and filled with double meanings. He starts using cute nicknames and private jokes that only the two of you know. This kind of talk creates a bond, a private world built on being the only ones involved. The most telling part is that he does not speak this way to anyone else. That matters because it shows that he is not just talking, he is linking. Linking, when kept up over time with feeling, becomes an attachment. You may find yourself caught between being happy and feeling bad, or between being liked and being confused, because he is not just being kind, he is reaching for something. Maybe he does not even know what it is, but you feel it. You carry it, and it is only just the start. Before anything physical ever happens, before a touch or a secret is told, there is language, there is attention, there is being there. That is where the inner affair begins. That is where danger grows. Now that you have seen the start with clear eyes, you must ask yourself if you are a part of a story you chose to write, or one that is being written for you. By the time small looks turn into steady attention, a simple talk turns into a habit. The link is no longer a mistake. It is alive and quietly growing in the dark of what should be off limits. While nothing physical has happened, something deeper and often more risky has started. This is the part most women do not see coming. Not because they are slow, but because this bond wears a soft mask. It feels like kindness, trust, and warmth. But underneath, it carries the weight of putting needs onto someone else, and a quiet wish that words alone cannot hold. At first, his texts start to change. He no longer just checks in. He begins to share parts of his life, how he slept, what he has been thinking about, and small secrets about stress or fights at home. You listen because you are kind and because you care. Something in his being open calls out to you. Maybe you have been lonely too. Maybe you know what it is like to be missed. So the space between you becomes a safe spot for him, and slowly for you too. But this is no longer about just being friends. This is when you become his safe place. Loneliness does not come from being alone, but from not being able to say the things that matter to you. A man in a long bond may have someone there but no link. When he finds someone who truly listens and really sees him, it can feel like a drug. He keeps coming back because, in your words, he finds what he has been missing: being liked, feeling safe, and being present. You may find yourself in a role you never asked for. He tells you things like, "I have never told anyone this." These words may feel nice, but they are warnings. They come with costs. Needing someone this way is not love. Many women do not see that this link with a married man can feel stronger than a physical link with someone single. It is built on secrets and contrast. You become the escape and the place where he feels alive. But this is not a link built in freedom. It is built from holes that need filling. True links bring clarity, while this way of acting lives in confusion. He may not want to hurt his wife, but he needs you to feel whole. That puts you in a spot of weight that is not fair. Over time, you may notice that you have started to wait for his texts and that his voice stays in your head. Your day feels boring without his attention. In a quiet way, he is becoming part of your inner world through doing it over and over. This is the trap. Not because either of you are bad, but because neither of you stopped to look at where you were going. At this stage, the talks get deeper. He tells you about his past, his fears, and his sad thoughts. You feel special and trusted. But ask yourself why he is telling you and not his wife. Often it is because he no longer feels safe at home or is afraid. You become the stand-in partner. Many bonds are born not from real love, but from what a person stands for. He may be falling for an idea or a fix, which is not fair to you. You are being picked for the gap you fill. He starts using "we" more often and talks about future ideas. These words create a world where the two of you are more than what is real. You may begin to drift into that world with him, thinking about what life might be like if things were different. You start to back up his actions to yourself, saying he is not happy at home. But your gut feels the weight of this mess. You are not his doctor or his fix. There is a hidden cost here. You begin to do the work that does not belong to you. You worry about his mood and his marriage. You take on his problems. In doing so, you use up your own heart. It cannot last. You deserve a link where being open is for both people and is free, not hidden or kept secret. You deserve to be picked in the light, not in the dark. One strong sign of this mess is when he pulls away with no warning. After weeks of being close, he gets distant and cold. This is not him saying no. It is fear. The bond he built with you now scares the life he has. In that fight, you get hurt. You may feel sad or left out, but the truth is that you reached a point where the link had to be faced or pushed away, and he picked pushing away. Even without a single touch, a bond has been made that is based on hidden needs. You feel it in the quiet between texts and the spark of a late-night note. Then the link changes again. He becomes cold where he was once warm. You are left wondering if it was ever real. It was real, but it could not last. He knows that the closer he got to you, the further he moved from who he thinks he should be. Instead of facing the mess, he runs. One day he is warm, the next he is formal and short. This back and forth is the sign of a fight inside him. He wants the link, but not the trouble. This is about his fear and split heart. It leaves you feeling lost. Few people are willing to face the results of their bonds. They move between hot and cold instead. You are left holding the pieces while he may go back to his old life. You, the woman who listened and kept his secrets, are left waiting. You may still check your phone and look for meaning, but was it good for you? If a bond lives in silence, it is not feeding you. It is draining you. This is the moment where knowing becomes a choice. You must find your power by being clear with yourself. Ask if you feel safe or if you are just waiting and doubting. You deserve to be whole, not just have crumbs. Just because a man wants you does not mean he is there for you. Just because a link is real does not mean it is right. You deserve love that does not hide. You deserve a partner who is free to build with you. Now that you know how this works, you have the power to step out of the fog. This is about seeing the truth so you can stop living in someone else's book. When he runs, it is because being close has made a mess in him. He has to pick between being honest and hiding. Some stay in this gray spot for years, giving just enough to keep you there. In doing so, they take away your peace. Confusion is not kindness. You must ask how long you will stay in a story where you are not the lead. You do not need him to pick in order for you to be free. You can choose to walk away from a link that makes you tired. You can choose yourself. Your worth is not about his fight. You are whole already. If he truly values you, he will make room for you in truth and freedom. If he does not, then you must look after yourself. You deserve a love that is clear and notes sent in the day. You deserve to be the goal, not a way out. Look into your own heart. Are you building something real or holding on to a dream? This is about clarity, which is kind. It lets you move into the life you want, where love does not come in bits, but whole. You should not be a secret. You should be the truth. When this emotional bond deepens, it moves into a stage of silent expectations. You are no longer just a friend. You have become a vital part of his daily survival. He relies on your validation to get through his marriage, and you rely on his attention to feel special. This creates a cycle where both people are hooked on a feeling that cannot exist in the real world. The next part of this story often involves emotional exhaustion. Because the relationship is hidden, you cannot share your joy or your pain with others. You are carrying a heavy secret alone. This weight starts to change how you see yourself. You might begin to feel that you are only valuable when you are helping him or listening to him. Your own goals, hobbies, and friendships might start to fade because your mind is always occupied by his latest message or his sudden silence. Eventually, the micro-bubble begins to leak into reality. People around you might notice the long glances or the change in energy. The fear of being caught adds a layer of stress that often turns the safe haven into a place of anxiety. The very connection that felt like an escape starts to feel like a cage. This is the moment where the dream breaks, and you have to decide if you are willing to keep living for someone else's comfort while your own life stands still. The most important thing to remember is that space is the only way to find truth. When you are constantly in contact with him, you cannot see the situation clearly. Taking a step back isn't an act of cruelty. It is an act of self-care. It allows the fog to lift so you can see if this is a path that leads to a healthy future or just a dead end. As this bond continues, it moves into a phase of deep emotional reliance. You are no longer just a person he talks to. You have become his hidden support system. He starts to depend on your kindness to handle the stress of his home life. This creates a loop where he uses your energy to stay in a marriage he claims is empty. You become the fuel that keeps his old life running, while your own life waits in the background. The weight of this secrecy begins to change how you feel about yourself. Because you cannot talk about him to your friends or family, you become isolated. You are living a double life. This isolation makes his attention feel even more important, which draws you deeper into the trap. You might find that you are always waiting for a text, waiting for him to be free, or waiting for him to make a choice he isn't actually making. At some point, the stress of the secret starts to outweigh the joy of the connection. The small bubble you built begins to feel heavy. You realize that while you are giving him your full heart, he is only giving you his spare time. This is a painful realization, but it is also the beginning of your freedom. It is the moment you see that you are playing a role in his life that keeps you small. True healing starts when you stop being his emotional bridge. You realize that he must fix his own life and you must live yours. Taking your attention back is not mean, it is necessary. It allows you to stop being a refuge and start being a person who is ready for a real, open, and honest love. You deserve a story where you don't have to hide, and where the person you love is proud to stand beside you in the light. The next part of this journey is the realization of the silent cost. When you are deeply involved in this emotional bond, you start to lose your own sense of direction. Your happiness becomes tied to his availability. If he is warm and present, your world feels bright. If he is cold or busy with his family, your world feels dark. This is called emotional regulation through another person, and it is a heavy burden to carry. You are no longer in control of your own peace because you have handed the keys to someone who is not fully in your life. This leads to a stage called the frozen future. In a normal relationship, people plan ahead. They talk about trips, meeting family, or building a home. But in an emotional affair with a married man, the future is a wall. You cannot move forward, and you feel guilty moving back. You are stuck in a permanent now that never grows. This lack of growth eventually turns into a quiet resentment. You might feel angry at him for not being free, or angry at yourself for staying. This anger is actually your soul telling you that you are meant for more than a life lived in the cracks of someone else's schedule. Eventually, you must face the reality of the emotional shadow. He gets to have the stability of his home and the excitement of your connection. He gets the best of both worlds, while you are left with the leftovers of his day and the weight of the secret. When you see this clearly, the magic of the connection starts to fade. You realize that what felt like a special soul bond was actually a lopsided deal. He was using you to stay comfortable in his life, while you were losing yourself in his. The final turn is reclaiming your emotional space. This happens when you decide that your heart is not a waiting room. You start to pull your energy back, not out of spite, but for survival. You stop being the person who fixes his moods or listens to his complaints about his wife. You start pouring that care back into your own life, your own dreams, and your own physical world. This is the hardest part because the silence will feel loud at first. But in that silence, you will finally hear your own voice again, telling you that you are ready for a love that is whole, honest, and completely yours. The next part of this journey is the stage of emotional exhaustion. After months or even years of being a secret support system, you start to feel a deep tiredness that sleep cannot fix. This happens because you are holding the weight of two lives but only living half of one. You are constantly on guard, checking your phone in private and keeping your thoughts to yourself. This constant state of being on drains your spirit. You may find that your work, your health, and your other friendships are starting to suffer because all your best energy is going toward a connection that cannot be shared with the world. Then comes the moment of the hard mirror. This is when you stop looking at him and start looking at the reality of your situation. You see that he goes home to a life that is full, even if he says it is unhappy. He has a house, a family, and a public face. You, on the other hand, are sitting in the dark, waiting for a piece of his time. You realize that you have become an emotional band-aid. You are helping him feel good enough to stay in a life that he says he hates. By being his refuge, you are actually preventing him from making a real choice. You are the reason he doesn't have to change, while you are the only one who is truly suffering. This realization leads to the transition of detachment. This is the most painful but necessary step. It is the process of untangling your heart from his. It starts with small steps. You stop being the first person to reply. You stop asking about his marriage. You stop being the one who offers comfort when he is stressed. You begin to build a wall around your heart, not to be mean, but to protect what is left of your peace. You start to see him not as a soulmate, but as a person who is stuck, and you realize that you cannot be the one to pull him out. The final part is the return to self. When you finally stop giving him your energy, you feel a strange new space opening up in your life. At first, it feels like a hole or a deep sadness. But slowly, that space begins to fill with your own interests and your own light. You start to remember who you were before you became a secret. You realize that your value was never tied to his attention. You understand that the electricity you felt was actually the stress of a bond that wasn't allowed to grow. You emerge from the fog with a new kind of strength, ready for a love that doesn't require you to hide, wait, or settle for pieces. The next part of this journey is the stage of the quiet goodbye. This is not always a big fight or a loud breakup. Often it is a slow fading away as you realize that the bond has nowhere to go. You reach a point of emotional burnout where the excitement of a secret text is no longer enough to cover the pain of being alone in the light of day. You start to see the cycle for what it is. A loop of temporary highs, followed by long, cold lows. The magic you once felt starts to look more like a burden, and the words he uses to keep you close begin to sound like empty echoes. This leads to the realization of the false bridge. You thought you were building a path towards something new, but you eventually see that he was using you as a bridge to stay right where he is. Your support allowed him to endure his marriage without actually fixing it. By being his emotional escape, you became part of the reason his life stayed the same. This is a hard truth to face, but it is the key to your exit. When you realize that your kindness was actually helping him avoid his own reality, you feel a shift in your soul. You stop wanting to be the fix for a problem that isn't yours to solve. Then comes the reclamation of the morning. For a long time, your first and last thoughts were about him. Now you begin to take back your mornings. You stop checking your phone the moment you wake up. You start to plan your days around your own needs, your own friends, and your own peace. You begin to invest in your own growth, maybe a hobby you dropped, a goal you put on hold, or simply the quiet joy of not being on call for someone else's emotional crisis. You are no longer waiting for a signal to decide if you are going to have a good day. You decide for yourself. The final part is the arrival of true clarity. You look back at the connection not with anger, but with a calm understanding. You see that you were looking for connection and he was looking for a refuge, but neither of you was truly free. You forgive yourself for the time you spent in the shadows. You realize that you didn't lose anything real because a love that has to hide isn't fully real. You emerge with a clear vision of what you truly want, a partner who is available, a relationship that is open, and a life where you are the truth, not the secret. You step out of the borrowed story and finally pick up the pen to write your own. The next part of this journey is the stage of the final shift. This is the moment you stop asking why he is doing this and start asking why you are staying. You begin to see that the bond was like a heavy weight you were carrying uphill while he watched from the top. The beauty of the secret language and the special looks starts to fade because they don't change your daily life. You realize that a man's attention is not the same thing as a man's commitment. One is easy to give in the dark, but the other requires him to stand in the sun. This leads to the breaking of the spell. You notice that when you stop giving him your energy, he might try harder to keep you hooked. He might send more sweet messages or tell you he misses you more than ever. But now, you see these as tools to keep you in the micro bubble, rather than acts of real love. You realize that if he truly cared for your soul, he wouldn't keep you in a place that makes you feel small and hidden. You start to value your time more than his praise. You begin to feel a new kind of pride in your own strength and your own boundaries. Then comes the return to the real world. You step out of the fog and look around at the people who actually show up for you. Your real friends, your family, and the people who can look you in the eye in front of everyone. You realize how much you missed the simple joy of a connection that doesn't need a password or a deleted chat history. You start to feel lighter because you are no longer holding your breath. The energy you used to spend on him starts to go into your own health, your own work, and your own future. The final piece is the peace of being whole. You understand now that you were never half of a story. You were always the whole book. You don't need to be someone's secret to be special. You don't need to be someone's escape to be wanted. You are your own sanctuary now. You look at the path behind you and see it as a lesson in how much love you have to give, but also a lesson in who is worthy of receiving it. You move forward with a heart that is open but wise, ready for a love that is honest, brave, and completely in the light.